In this video, we are going to show you how to create a site-to-site VPN tunnel between two locations using the VPN wizard. So we're first going to navigate to configure VPN on the head office XG appliance. We'll now navigate to IPsec Connection wizard. We'll give this VPN connection a name and a description. Now we're going to pick what type of VPN connection we're going to establish. You'll notice here that we have a couple of different options. We're going to select site to site. And we're simply going to select what policy out of the predefined policy list we're going to choose. Since this is our main location, we're going to select the default head office. And then the action, we'll set this to respond only, as we're going to have the branch VPN office be the office that's going to establish the VPN connection. We're now taken to an area where we'll be able to define the type of authentication we're going to use. So you'll notice here that we have three different options: PreShared key, digital certificate, or an RSA key. For today's demonstration, we'll leverage a PreShared key. Now we're going to be asked to define details on the local network. So here I'm going to pick the local WAN port. In this case, it's my ETH1 port. And now I'm going to define my local subnet. So you'll see here that I have a predefined object corresponding to my 192.168.168.0 subnet. So we'll select that. And for local ID, we'll go ahead and define this as an email. We're now going to define the remote WAN IP address that we're going to be connecting to for a VPN tunnel. So I'm going to type in the IP address of the remote site that we're connecting to. I'm also going to define the subnet on that site. In this case, I have an address object already set up, but if you do want to create a new subnet object, you can come in and do that under this create function. My remote ID is going to be an email address. We'll hit next. We'll leave the authentication mode for XAuth as disabled. We get a nice IPsec summary. And now we hit finish. And you'll see here that the site-to-site connection parameters have been established. At this point, we'll want to create firewall rules to allow inbound and outbound VPN traffic to flow. So I'm going to go ahead and create two firewall rules under the Protect Firewall area of Sophos Firewall OS. And the first rule is going to be called Inbound VPN. So Inbound VPN will have a source of our VPN zone and a destination of any trusted zone behind your firewall. In this case, I'm going to select my LAN. Now keep in mind, if you wanted to get a little bit more specific, you can tweak your address objects. So I'm simply going to define my VPN zone as the site B subnet object that I have. And my destination is going to be my internal LAN subnet. I'm going to disable an identity-based rule by unchecking match known users. And we're going to enable log firewall traffic for troubleshooting purposes. I'm now also going to create an outbound rule. My source zone is going to be my LAN. Once again, I will define my network address object as being my internal subnet. My destination is going to be my VPN zone. And once again, I'll do the exact same thing on the address object side. I'll define my remote subnet. We'll uncheck match known users again, enable log firewall traffic, and hit save. So now we're going to navigate to the remote location, and we're going to do the exact same thing by first creating the VPN connection policy. Instead of using the wizard this time, I'm going to go ahead and manually add a VPN connection. So we'll call this connection Chicago. The connection type is going to be site to site. Since this is our branch office, we're going to select for policy default branch office. And we're going to have this particular office initiate the VPN connection. So once again, I have my choice of authentication type. In this case, we're using a PreShared key. This PreShared key has to match what is on the other side. So we'll go ahead and enter that in. My local subnet here is going to be my .189 WAN IP address. And then I'll simply define the remote WAN IP address of the office I'm connecting to. I'll now define my local subnet here. My local ID is going to be my email address. My remote LAN network is going to be the other side of the tunnel, in this case, Chicago. And then my remote ID is going to be the email address that we specified at the other location. So now we'll hit save. And under IPsec Connections, you'll notice that the status will be red. If we click on activate the connection, the tunnel should come up. Although you'll notice here that the connection will still remain red. In order to complete this site-to-site VPN, we'll have to create two access rules under Firewall Protect for the remote location. An inbound rule as well as an outbound rule. So for my source zone for inbound, we'll use the VPN zone. We'll also tie the Chicago subnet object to the VPN zone. And then we'll also define my destination as my trusted interface, or in this case, my LAN interface. The remote subnet is going to be the object I created for the LAN interface. We'll uncheck match known users, click on log firewall traffic, and hit save. We will also create an outbound VPN policy by defining my source as LAN, my network object, which will correspond to the LAN interface that's present behind this firewall. Destination will be the VPN zone. And finally, my object will correspond to that remote subnet. We'll uncheck match known users. We will also enable log firewall traffic for troubleshooting purposes and hit save. Now, as we navigate back to configure VPN, we'll click on the red connection button. At this point, the VPN connection is established.